Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Open Water webinar on how to build your brand on LinkedIn. My name is Chris Albrecht. I am your host, and I am super thrilled to be chatting today with our guest. It's Melissa Grabiner. She is actually by day the Senior Talent Acquisition Leader at One Digital, but by, I don't want to say night, but like in the off time, she is a rapidly expanding force on LinkedIn with more than 333,000 followers on LinkedIn with regular posts going viral. We're going to learn how she does it. Melissa, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Okay, let's start off super easy here real quick, right? Just give me a sense of how big your LinkedIn audience is right now.
Yeah, so I have been in the HR and recruiting space for my entire career, and I've always kind of dabbled in LinkedIn, but never took it seriously. And about 6 months ago was when I started getting serious about LinkedIn. And what I mean by that is at that point in time, I was typically posting about 4 times a week. And I use the platform as a way predominantly to motivate and help job seekers. And so I realized that my posts were quickly becoming pretty viral, and they were resonating with quite a few people. So what I decided to do was expand that, and then over time started posting. Then it was 5 days a week, and now I'm up to posting typically 6 days a week, sometimes seven. But I wanted to use the platform as a voice of reason and compassion and motivation for job seekers. And so I think part of the reason why my following has grown so vast and so quickly is because I don't sugarcoat things. I speak the truth. I provide a lot of tips and tools for job seekers. I provide a lot of motivation for job seekers. And since I have so much experience with recruiting and working in HR, I thought that this would be the perfect platform for me to showcase my experience in the interest of helping others succeed.
So, what's a good plan for people who want to get started building their audience?
Yeah, I think the first important point is for people to understand that it doesn't happen overnight and it takes time to build an audience. And I say this based on my own experience as well as posts that I see a lot from people saying, I see all kinds of posts from saying, I don't understand why, my followers isn't growing, or people are like, there are people that talk about tips and tools for people that want to grow their audience. But I think what people need to understand first and foremost is that it takes a strategic approach and it takes time. The first thing I would say, and I would say this for anyone on the platform, whether they're using it to grow their network or not, or even just to find a job, is to optimize your profile. So I look at LinkedIn and a person's profile as somewhat like their online resume. So ensure it's complete, professional, and that it really highlights and showcases your skills and achievements effectively. Using a professional photo is a must, and that might seem somewhat, like, of course I'm going to use a professional photo, but I see a lot of photos on there that aren't necessarily professional. And I think it's super important that your photo is. And I would also say, regularly share quality content, share information that's engaging, and perhaps even related to your industry or your expertise. And this could include articles, it can include posts, just posts you write, it can include blog posts. Videos is a big thing on LinkedIn now. I don't think I've ever posted a video, but I do use Canva to sometimes post. Like I'll write a post and then under it, I'll have like a screenshot of something that I created on Canva. And I think what's super important about LinkedIn that a lot of people don't realize, and I coach people on how to grow their LinkedIn following. I do one-on-one coaching. And one thing I always say is that it's not enough to just post, but you have to engage with other people's comments. So I think part of the reason why my network grew so vast is not necessarily because I post all the time, but it's because I engage with other people's comments. And every time someone comments on my post, I always go ahead and comment on their comment. So I want my audience to feel that when they write a comment on one of my posts that I am looking at it and it does mean something to me and it's important to me. And I appreciate when people do comment on my posts. And so, the other thing I want to say is, being active and being responsive. So regularly check your LinkedIn notifications, your messages, and your connection requests. And if you can, try to respond promptly to those messages and then engage with those who comment on your posts. So I receive on any given day from all over the world, at least 100, 120 messages from people. And I do my very, very best to respond to as many people as I can. I usually hit about 90% of that, which I think is pretty good. So again, I think it's posting often, it's engaging with other people's posts, and making sure that when you do post something and someone comments on that, that you comment in return.
Got it. So you're sort of creating this this sort of flywheel of content, really. So you're posting something, someone is creating content by posting, making a comment on your thing, and then you add it. So that just adds activity that I imagine feeds into whatever black box algorithm LinkedIn has to make sure that it's like, oh, there's a lot of activity happening on this post. We should make
Yes.
sure that it's in people's feeds.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up the algorithm. So I think the algorithm with LinkedIn, from what I've read and what I kind of see on my own, is that the algorithm is always changing. And I see a lot of posts from people saying, I don't understand this algorithm. Can anyone explain this to me? Sometimes people post and say, my post yesterday had all this engagement and my post today isn't getting any. The algorithm within LinkedIn, from what I understand, changes often. And it's like a guarded secret. They don't really talk about, if it does change, what exactly does that mean? So instead of getting frustrated, which I think a lot of people get, if you stay consistent, if you engage with your audience and you provide value through your content and your interactions, you're going to over time grow your audience for sure.
Okay, that's really, I think, a really good message, because I personally feel frustrated sometimes because it's like, I don't
Mhm.
understand. This seems to tick all the boxes, but it's gone nowhere. And it makes me not want to post again, because I'm like, well, I'm just kind of throwing news down a hole. But it sounds like, you just sort of have to get over that and just keep the consistency going.
Yeah, not every post is going to do well. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I posted something probably about 4 months ago, and I think I had over 30,000 reactions, which is just
That's
crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy. And then I posted something incredibly similar last week, and maybe I had 1,000 engagements, which is
Mm.
significantly less from the original post. And I do think it's probably because of what I keep hearing is that the algorithm has changed. So if you post something on LinkedIn and you don't see kind of a rate of return on that, don't get frustrated. Not every post, and I say this from my own experience, not every post is going to do great. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But again, the key is just staying consistent.
I want to follow up on something you said real quick, which is like optimizing your LinkedIn page.
Mhm.
So having a professional headshot, you're saying, is a must, right? And then is it also just sort of cleaning up your area to make sure everything is sort of rowing in the same direction? Like if you are an HR leader, you're posting content about HR stuff, or how do you mean, I understand keeping like your experiences up to date, but can you give me a little more about what you think optimizing your LinkedIn page looks like?
Sure. I think there's a couple of things here. Again, I spoke a little bit about the profile photo. I think the headline is super important, and this is what is underneath your name. So it's really important that individuals craft a compelling headline that very clearly describes who you are and what you do. So is if someone went to my page under my headline, they are not going to see my job title. They are not going to see the company I work at. What I put under my headline is what I want people to know about me, because I feel like I'm so much more than my job. I feel like my job's important and I love my job and it's what I do, but my job isn't who I am. So it's really important that people understand too. And I say this from a recruiting standpoint, being a recruiter for many years and using the LinkedIn recruiter license, is that there's typically three things that go to someone's eyes as soon as they land on your page. It's going to be your photo, it's going to be your banner, which is the big space behind
Background.
your,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it's going to be what's directly under your name. And you want that to be so compelling, those three things, that people have a desire to learn more about you and thus scroll down on your profile. So I think also, you want to have a very captivating summary that provides an overview of your background, your skills, your career goals, and even highlight what your unique value proposition is and what sets you apart from others in your field. And what I always say to job seekers when I coach them, because like I said earlier, I do provide one-on-one coaching, is that it's important to have your LinkedIn profile optimized at all time. And what I see a lot of people do is on their profile, they'll indicate their jobs and their title, but there's nothing under that. So it leaves me to guess, okay, I see someone's a digital marketer at Facebook. I don't know what that means in terms of their day-to-day responsibilities. So make sure that you're using all of the real estate that LinkedIn allows you, and that when someone goes on your profile, they don't have to guess what exactly you do day to day at your job. There's another part of LinkedIn that I think is something that a lot of people don't necessarily capitalize on, but there's a skills section and there's an endorsement section. Make sure that all of the relevant skills that you list align with your expertise and experience. And I think LinkedIn just changed it where people can indicate up to 80 skills. The
Mm,
more skills that you have on your profile, the better the chance is that a recruiter is going to reach out to you, because if the skills on your background align with the skills as part of the job description, there's that stronger synergy. So what I always suggest to job seekers is make sure that you on your profile you list as many skills as the system allows you to. And again, I think that it's 80. And if you have any sort of media or publications, so if you have any videos or presentations that you've done, or links to articles that you've either written or have been mentioned in, any portfolios, what this does is it allows you to showcase your work and provide actually tangible evidence of your skills and your accomplishments. And then the last thing I'll say is to customize your LinkedIn URL. And everyone can do this by going in the settings within their LinkedIn profile, but you want your URL to have your name in it so it's identified as yours versus one that the system will create for you on your own.
right.
Uh,
Some random series of letters and numbers. I want to
exactly.
ask you real quick while we're talking about this, right? Because I think it gets back to the idea of this. This is all about building your brand on LinkedIn. How do you talked about the headline being important, but I see so many that people are like, results driven leader who care, you know what I mean, who or emotional storyteller who everybody just kind of feels like it's the same vague notion for a lot of people. And I don't know, like, just to dig in a little bit deeper, should you get more specific, or does that kind of language really because it's more vague go farther for you?
I don't think it goes far at all. I think that you have to you meaning anyone on LinkedIn has to differentiate themselves, and the way they can do that is utilize what I call all of the LinkedIn real estate under their name. So if someone were to go to my page and like I said earlier, they're not going to see my job title right away. They're not going to see the company I work at. What I put here under my name was that I'm a global HR and talent acquisition leader. I'm the number two, at least this is what I was ranked, female LinkedIn creator worldwide, and so on and so forth. So the reason I indicate this on my profile where I indicate it is because when people go to my profile, I don't necessarily they don't need to know, as far as I'm concerned, right away where I work and what my job title is. What I want them to know about me at first glance is exactly what I have under my name. And I use all of the real estate or the spaces that LinkedIn allows a user to have. So what I see a lot of people do, and this is when I coach people, is they'll say, like I was coaching someone the other night and they're looking for a new sales job. And underneath their name, they had one word, sales. And what I said to him was, first of all, you're forfeiting so much space, right? Second of all, when someone goes to your profile and they see sales, there's a lot of different types of sales. It doesn't say the industry you're in. It doesn't say any sort of quantifiable figures or awards that you've won. The purpose, again, with LinkedIn, which I think is super important that people understand, is especially for job seekers, is that you want to have such a captivating profile at the top that you give recruiters and hiring managers no choice but to want to really learn about you and dig deeper into your profile. So, what I would say to anyone as they're looking at their profile is make sure that you do what you can do to stand out. Everyone has accomplishments in their career, right? Everyone has things that are great about their experience, either current or prior. That's what you want to showcase right away when someone goes to your page.
Got it. Excellent. So, all right. So I've got my LinkedIn profile all optimized. I've got my headline rocking. It's all going great. What's the best way to sort of present content on LinkedIn to get engagements? Should I be asking questions? Should I be posting articles or videos? Like, what do you think is the best way to get people to get those numbers up, to get the engagement up?
I think that it's important to post about so let me take a step back. So, like I said earlier, I use the platform as a voice of compassion and motivation and reason for job seekers because my experience has always been in HR and talent acquisition. And I think when people have a specific skill set or they work in a specific industry and they feel that they're a thought leader or they have a lot to say, use the platform for that. Um, that's why I decided to use LinkedIn platform the way I do, because I knew that it would resonate with a lot of people and I was comfortable providing content in that fashion because it's where all of my work experience lies. So I think that even just writing a post about an experience you had at work or giving tips and tools about anything that you think would resonate with people. I see all sorts of content on LinkedIn, and I'm on LinkedIn often. I'm probably on LinkedIn cumulatively at least 3 to 4 hours a day. I see all types of posts out there, but the creators that I see that really get it right are those that post a consistent theme over time and that provide tips and tools in some fashion to people. And another way that I think that I have done a good job in terms of increasing my engagement is typically I'll post something and at the bottom of the post I'll say, I would love your thoughts. And that kind of opens the door for a conversation. So instead of just posting something, ask the audience, ask the people reading your post, what do they think about it? That helps to increase engagement. And again, I can't stress enough the importance of when you make a post on LinkedIn to engage with your audience and comment on those posts because the algorithm, this is one thing I know for sure, the algorithm really hones in favorably on people that not only when they post something, but they're engaging with the comments of their post. That's what LinkedIn likes to see.
Got it. Speaking of questions, I want to make sure people in the audience know if you have a question, you can submit it and I will ask it like we just got one. So I'm going to take us on a little side tour here real quick while we answer Becky's question. And she wants to know, Becky wants to know, where do you add podcasts for your profile? So I imagine, you've got your professional things and maybe you've got a podcast that either supports that profession or maybe it's a personal one, but it's something that you produce. Where do you think people should put that in there?
So I think there's a few things. On someone's profile, they should have on their page it says add a custom button. And I think if they click on add a custom button, they're going to have a few things that appear. And I believe one of the options is to add, and don't quote me on this, I would have to play around, but you're able to add a link or like what they call like a premium custom button where you could then say, visit my blog, visit my portfolio, book an appointment, visit my website, and I think visit my store. So if you play around there, I think that's a place where you can add. The other thing you can do is you can just make a post and include the link. That works as well. And typically when I do podcasts, that's how I add them to my page is I will make a post about it. I'll talk a little bit about what the podcast was about. And then at the bottom of the message, I will include a link to the actual podcast.
So, okay, that's a good question here. So if you're doing podcasts, do you think you should put in a snippet, like either an audio or video snippet and then link to the full thing, or should you just link straight to the full podcast? Or what do you prefer to do, I should say?
So typically so I don't own my own sort of like podcast group. I usually am invited to podcasts such like US,
Yeah,
kindly asked me to join yours. So what I have seen most of the people do that run a podcast is they include anywhere from like a 30 to a 90-second snippet. And some of those examples one can see if they go through my feed. And then what I've seen people do is they'll put like a 30 to 90-second snippet, and at the bottom of the snippet, they'll have the full URL to review the full podcast.
got it.
And that's a really smart thing to do because it's giving people and viewers a small taste of the conversation, and that entices them and wants them hopefully to review the whole thing.
So I want to get back now to sort of how you structure content. So I hear, you said earlier that you ask a question like, what do you think at the end of your content? But when you're physically structuring, right? Like LinkedIn will have that little snippet at the top above the fold, we'll call it, right? And then you need to hit a see more button to get more. Um, how are you structuring your posts to take advantage of people scrolling?
So, what I typically do, and I read about this a lot, is I try to have all my posts have a very catchy first or second sentence. So, I'll give you a perfect example. I posted this morning a post, and it's the first sentence of my post said, "This needs to stop," and then I go ahead and finish the post. Well, that is a very catchy first sentence. So it's almost like you wanna have a hook to draw someone in. The
Sure.
other thing I use a lot are visuals. So nothing fancy, but I'll use like I did another post today where I did sunshine there was sunshine, the little sunshine emoji. So I'll do like a check mark or an X mark or like a sunshine emoji. Sometimes I'll use Canva and create like a black sort of small box, and then I'll put that under the post, and then I'll write my post and then include the Canva actual drawing that I created. But you want your posts to be engaging from the very, very start, or you want it to be visually appealing. So when someone sees your post, it's almost giving them a reason to say, I really want to review and read this entire post.
And how long do you normally make your post? If it's a written one, like let's exclude podcast snippets, right? Like if you're writing something, how long do you typically try to make it?
My posts are shorter versus longer. I will be honest with you. I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn that are incredibly lengthy. I don't usually read those because it just seems overwhelming when I look on the post and it's just a long, 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 long post. There's so much content I want to see on LinkedIn. And I don't think it makes sense, at least for me, to ever create a post that is so long. You want to be able to capture a reader's attention immediately, and you don't want them to get lost in the words of a long post.
Got it. Do you have anything on timing? Like, are you posting at the same time every day, or do you think, you're located in the middle of the country, so you have sort of, the East Coast on one side and the West Coast on the other, right? I'm on the West Coast, so I try to consider the mental math I do sometimes is like, well, should I post at 7 a.m. so it's 10 a.m. East Coast time, or should I wait until 9 a.m. West Coast time where I am? Do you see what I mean? Like
Yeah,
trying to maximize my readership based on just time zones. Do you have any thoughts around that?
I do. So I think it's important to post roughly the same time every day because that's when your followers are going to be expecting your post. Typically, I will post between 9 and 10 a.m. Central Time. This way, if I'm posting at, let's say, 9 a.m. Central Time, I'm in Chicago Central Time Zone. I would assume that most people on the West Coast by 7 in the morning might be up for the day. So typically that's my sweet spot between 9 and 10 a.m. Central Time. Um, but I have seen posts go crazy bonkers, in terms of a huge engagement at 6 p.m. So again, I think it's the algorithm is changing all the time. But for me, what I have noticed to be successful is again between that 9 and 10 a.m. slot. But what's important is that you try to be consistent as much as you can within the same time every day of posting, because that's when your audience is going to be expecting that post.
Got it. Okay, we're going to veer off a little bit here because we got a question from the audience, which is, let's say that you're creating great content, and do you have a recommendation when an individual views? So, like, I create content, somebody comes in, I don't know them, somebody views it. Is it okay to reach out and connect with them and say, "Hey, I noticed you viewed my profile and would like to connect"?
Of course. Of
Okay,
course. I mean, LinkedIn is a networking platform at its core, right? And so I have people, I mean, all day reaching out to me with messages asking me to connect. So yeah, and quite frankly, a lot of the really great friends I've met from this platform have been either because I reached out to them or they sent me a message. I've done a lot of podcasts, I've done a lot of LinkedIn live events. This is all through conversations that have happened through the LinkedIn platform.
okay. Well, there you go. Anonymous question answerer from the audience. Um, all right. So you've got your content, you're writing it every day, you've got your headline, you've got all of that. Um, and you said, I want to just go back to this because we talked about it at the very beginning, which is sort of engaging with other content. Now, We talked before about engaging with comments on your content, but how important is it for you to engage with other content? Like, are you out there actively liking and reposting and commenting on other things, or is there sort of um, formula that, or not formula, but is there some method you should be thinking about in terms of boosting your own brand?
Oh, I mean, I'm constantly posting comments on other people's posts. I mean, I spend at least, 3 to 4 hours a day collectively on LinkedIn, and the vast majority of that time is spent commenting on other people's posts. So, in addition to monitoring the reaction and the engagement of my own posts, it's super important to engage with other people, because what happens is, if you so let's say that you made a post and I commented on it. Well, all of a sudden everyone that reads your post is going to see my comment. And they're going to see my name, and they're going to see the first maybe sentence or two of my headline, and they might say, "Oh, Melissa Grabiner commented on this post. Her her post or her comment looks really engaging and interesting. I'm going to click in her profile and learn more about her." There's a ton of people who've connected with me simply because they resonated with something that I commented on, and I know this because of their message to me. I receive messages all the time of, "Hey, Melissa, this is so and so. I just saw your post or your comment on Chris's post. I really, really like what you had to say. Would love to connect with you." So it's commenting on other people's posts is a true, true way to grow your following on LinkedIn.
How much work do you think should people expect if they want to like legitimately grow their LinkedIn audience? How much work per week?
Like I said, I'm on the platform 3 to 4 hours a day, but I want to say that I love LinkedIn. And so, like, if I didn't love LinkedIn, if I didn't love what it has given me and all it's brought to my life, I probably wouldn't engage or spend nearly as much time as I do. But I realized over time that the more time I spent on the platform, the more advantageous it was for me in terms of growing my audience, starting 2 side businesses through LinkedIn, meeting a ton of people through the platform like yourself. So it really depends on how much time someone has to spend and how much time someone wants to spend. But I will say, and I say this based on conversations I've had with other individuals who have a large following like myself, we all spend a good amount of time on the platform. If someone can only spend an hour a day, then spend an hour a day, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong way. I think it depends on what else you have going on in your life. My 2 boys are in college. It's just me and my husband. I have more time in my hands now. If my boys were home, I wouldn't have nearly as much time to be on LinkedIn, and that would be okay. But for me, because I have the time and because I love it so much, I have no problem investing up to 4 hours a day.
Okay. I want to remind people that they can submit questions if they want, and so I want to ask now, like, we've gotten a lot of really great tips. This has gotten me really excited. Thank you, because I just think about not only myself, but open water as we build our business online and how we could be using LinkedIn more effectively. So this is all really wonderful. And what I'm wondering is if you could tell me, just aside from having a follower account now of over 330,000 people, right? What are some of the other benefits or outcomes that you've generated by devoting so much time to growing your audience on LinkedIn? Like, obviously you're here, which is a highlight, I'm sure. Talking right now with me, obviously. But just in general, like, what other opportunities have arisen strictly from sort of your content growing program?
Yeah, I will tell you, LinkedIn has completely changed my life. So in the last 6 months, I have been on numerous podcasts. I have participated in numerous LinkedIn Live events. I started a side business of helping people with their resumes and LinkedIn optimization and branding. And there's actually a link on my page. So I've had a very successful side business. And then the other thing that's been super exciting is that I work with companies in promoting their brands on LinkedIn. So companies have reached out to me and said, "I love your content. Would you be a brand ambassador?" So basically, what that means is I get paid by companies to write about their company on my page. Now, I want to say though that it's very important to me that any companies that I partner with, that I feel will resonate with my audience and that I'm being authentic. So here's an example. I had a fintech company reach out to me recently and said, "We love your content. We're a startup organization. We're trying to get our name out there on LinkedIn. Would you be willing to post about our company?" And I turned them down, very, very thankful. I was very thankful that they wanted to work with me. But what I said to them was, my audience is predominantly job seekers and people who are needing motivation about their work, I talk a lot about HR topics as well. And I said, if I post about your company, my audience will be like, why is Melissa posting about a fintech company when I've never posted about fintech before? So, in order for me to work with companies, again, I have to feel that it resonates with my core audience and that I believe in their product. I have to have, and this is per my request, I want to get access to their product. I want to test it out myself. And then if I feel that it falls within my wheelhouse, then I will work with these companies. My husband, interestingly enough, my husband, who's a former chief marketing officer, him and I worked together on this. He was super excited about all the things that have been happening with LinkedIn. That whenever I write what's called a sponsored post, in other words, posting on behalf of a company, him and I sit down together and we create the content for that post, because he's a much better writer than I am. He's really smart when it comes to this sort of thing. And we together sit down, we create the post, and then we send it to the company or the client. We say, here's what we're thinking, make any changes as you see fit. And then once it's finalized, I will go ahead and actually post it on my page. But, if someone were to tell me 6 weeks ago that, or 6 months ago, that I could actually monetize being on LinkedIn, it never even crossed my mind for a second, because that's never why I wanted to be on LinkedIn. That's never why I started to utilize the platform. But as my following grew and this thing got kind of bigger and bigger, I thought to myself, if a company wants to work with me and I really feel good about the company, sure. And if I can educate my audience, and if they could use these companies that are mostly in the job search space, is it could if it could help my audience find a job, it's a win-win all around. So yeah, so in addition to posting, again, I've just it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's been super fun.
That's great. Well, I mean, it shows, right? Like it seems like you're really enjoying it, that you're
Mhm.
legitimately and authentically into the platform, and what it can do and how it can help people. So that's wonderful that those two things can sort of align. We got a question from Patrick who wants to know, what is the best method of engaging with recruiters, headhunters for companies and roles of interest? Specifically, how does one stand out to a company like OpenAI slash Anthropic, where there is such a race to become part of the company and the pool of candidates is expected to be deep?
Yeah, so I'm going to share something now, which I think is super, super cool. And the reason I'm sharing this is because if it happened to me, it could happen to others. I worked at a company for 18 years, and when my position was moved to Boston, I was offered a reload, decided to leave the company. I didn't want to move, and I was out of a job, and I didn't even have a resume put together. And I was like, God, I've been in HR and recruiting my whole career, and now I have to search for a job. And I was like, I don't even know how to do this. So what I did was I finally got my resume together and I wrote a list of about 25 companies that I was interested in. And the company I work at now, the way I got this job was I reached out to the CEO on LinkedIn, and they didn't have any job openings on their website. And I reached out and I said, it was like a small paragraph of, "Hi, my name's Melissa Grabiner. I'm really interested in your company." And I listed a couple of reasons why. And I said, I have been, in recruiting and HR for, at that point, 20 years. Here's what I could bring to the table. I would love if you can consider me for a potential future job opening. Well, what happened was this woman, she got back to me, and long story short, 2 weeks later, I had a job offer in hand, and I've been at this company for 3 years. And so my point in telling this story is that, especially in today's incredibly, incredibly competitive job market, what job seekers need to do is to have something in their toolbox to separate them and make them shine outside of other applicants, right? And so it is not uncommon for some jobs on LinkedIn to have over 1,000 applicants. I saw one the other day that had 2,400 applicants, which is crazy. So, job seekers have two choices. They can apply to a job and be one of 1,000 applicants and hope and pray and cross their fingers that a recruiter is going to actually see their application, or they take it a step further, which is what I did, and you send a note directly to a recruiter at the company. Maybe, depending on the size of the company I work at is relatively small, so I felt comfortable sending a message directly to the CEO. But if it was like an open AI, I probably wouldn't send a message directly to the CEO. What I would
No.
probably do is do a search on LinkedIn, and you type in open AI talent acquisition, and then you click on people, and then all of the people who are recruiters or in TA at that company will appear, and then you send them a message right through LinkedIn. And I can tell you as a recruiter myself for my clients, I love when people reach out to me on LinkedIn. And my view is if someone takes the time to find out who I am and write a personalized message to me because of their interest in a job, you betcha I'm going to take a look at their profile and their resume. So in order to stick out from today's competitive job market, and this is what when I coach people in my coaching business, is that it's not enough to simply post for a job and pray and cross your fingers you're going to get a call. You have to take that extra step. And if reaching out to someone at the company, if it worked for me, it could work for you too.
So I want to ask you kind of a specific, so Open Water is all about building a community and connecting our members who typically have decades, plural, of experience. So I'm now in my 50s. And if I were to go out and look, the things I struggle with are sort of how far back should I go on my resume? Should I include my graduation date, right? Like, are these suddenly red flags for people? Who are looking, right? Because for whatever reason, right? Like I don't want to sit there and shake my fist and go, man, I'm old. You know what I mean? Like, but do you have advice for people who have been around for a long time? How far back should they go with their experience? What should they list? Anything like that?
No, absolutely. And this is what I coach people on all the time. I would say for anyone who has a college degree, I don't care when you graduated, if it was last year or 20 years ago, do not put the year you graduated college, because first of all, it doesn't matter when you graduated. And second of all, as much as there are laws that are, discrimination against people over 40, the truth of the matter is that there are companies that do discriminate. And listen, I'm 52 years old. I'm considered in that older bucket as well. And so I understand, what it could feel to be discriminated against because of my age. That's why I say you never want to put the year you graduate. And typically I would say to someone to not go back more than 20 years of experience, because quite frankly, any skills that you acquired or experiences you had 20 years ago, it's probably not going to even be relevant now. What's relevant is what you have done in the last, I would say, 10 years. But I would never say to someone, if you've been in the workforce for 30 years, only put 10 on your resume. You have to have a little more meat than that. So typically when I coach people, I say you don't necessarily need to go back more than 20 years, because again, most of that experience probably won't be relevant. Technologies change, companies change. You want your experience to be relevant. So I would say, no more than 20 years as a general rule of thumb. Now I look at everyone's resumes as a separate resume. And there might have been times where I've coached someone to say, well, because this was your job title then, and maybe this was 23 years ago, I'd say, because of your experience, keep that on your resume. But as a general rule of thumb, 95% of the time, you definitely don't need to go back more than 20 years of experience.
So my skills in AOL and
Yeah,
aren't
right,
really
right.
relevant anymore. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay, we got another question from Melissa here who wants to know for ATS. I'm sorry, I don't know what ATS is.
Oh, sure. It's applicant tracking system.
Oh, hey, look at that. Okay, for applicant tracking systems, will not including a college or master's graduation date be flagged or tossed out?
Well, it depends. I mean, there are some ATSs that it depends on the configuration. I've worked in probably 15 of them, and it depends on the configuration, and it depends on what the company wants included in terms of the candidate's application. There are some applications or ATSs where if you don't add a date, the system will not accept it as being a true application. It's one of those fields that's mandatory. And if it is, then you simply put the date you graduated college. I will tell you, for me, if I was completing an application and the applicant tracking system asked me my college graduation year and it was not a mandatory field, I would not put it in because I don't think it's necessary that anyone knows the year I graduated. What matters is that I graduated.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I like. See, that's why we have you on, because
Yeah.
you're empowering people. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to be mindful of your time. We've been getting a lot of great questions, so I want
Yeah.
to open it up one more time for people before we close out. Um, but I want to ask you also, just as a recruiter, now we've talked about things like headshot and headline, and then sort of length of time going back, but is there anything else that you looked at? Because I know you have a special recruiter view of LinkedIn. And so I don't know if there's anything else in that I could, like, or I or anybody else could set up on my profile that would be showing up specifically in the recruiter profile. Does that make sense? Like something that I may not think is important, but actually is, or hidden, that is actually, prominent.
Yes, I'm so glad you asked this question because I'm going to educate everyone on this call about something that most people don't know about. So, a big way LinkedIn makes their money is through what's called a recruiter license, and companies have to pay a lot of money for this. And I have a recruiter license at my current client where I'm consulting. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when recruiters are looking for talent on LinkedIn, we have the ability to enter in for any specific job a bunch of criteria. So, for example, in one of my positions that I'm recruiting for my client, I'm looking to hire a medical director. And the system allows me to put in different job titles, different locations, different skills and assessments. It could pull from a specific company. It could pull from, depending on the seniority. There's like director, senior, VP, entry level. And what happens is, based on the search criteria that I indicate, the system will then pull up candidates in the database that are a match based on the criteria put forth by me when I'm putting together my search criteria. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because there is a section that recruiters can use called skills and assessments. And so for this particular position, I am looking for a medical director that has diabetes and metabolism experience. So anyone who has a medical director as a title that's in San Francisco that has diabetes or metabolism on their profile is going to pull up. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I talked a little bit about the skills section on your LinkedIn profile. And I believe that LinkedIn allows up to 80 skills. And the better chance of you getting actually contacted by a recruiter is having as many skills listed on your profile. So what I would suggest to everyone is go into your profile, go into the skills area and try to come up, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that are pre-populated in the system that you can choose from. Try to come up with at least 80 skills that are a match with your background, because by doing that, there's a better chance that you're going to get pulled as a potential candidate, assuming all of the other search criteria are met based on what you put in your profile, coupled with based on the search words that are used by the recruiter. So maximize the skills section on your profile. I can't stress enough the importance of doing that.
Okay. So I'm going to just, three things that we're going here. We got professional headshot, make use of all the real estate on the headline, do all your skills, right? Well, I'm going to go more than three now. If you're interested in growing your followers, post every day consistently around the same time, ask engaging questions, make sure the hook is at top of the fold, right? Before the see more. Oh, look at me doing a thumbs up right there, right? So these are just some of the great things. Melissa Grabiner, how could people find you if they want to engage your services?
Absolutely. And I just want to take one step back and talk about one more thing about your
Sure,
LinkedIn
please.
profile. If people go to my profile, what they're going to see on the banner, which is the rectangular space behind my picture, it says Melissa Grabiner, advocate for job seekers / recruiting strategy expert. I created this personalized banner on Canva, CANVA, for free. And what I suggest, and this is what I suggest during my coaching calls, is that instead of using a banner that is defaulted by LinkedIn, create your own personalized banner. Add a few, have obviously your name, have it to be inviting colors, and then talk about a couple of phrases about you that you want people to know about you right away when they look at your profile. And because I use the platform as an advocate for job seekers, and because I'm a recruiting strategy expert, and I say this just based on my work experience, those were the two things I wanted people to see right away when they came to my profile. So, what I would suggest to everyone on this call, if you don't have a personalized banner, I would create one because, again, when a recruiter or hiring manager goes to your profile, the first three things they're going to care about is your banner, is your picture, and everything that is listed underneath your name. So try to capitalize on all of that. So to answer your question, on my page, there's a link under, it says Greater Chicago Area. There's a link and it says need one-on-one help, click here. I've coached probably, I'd say I just started this business very recently. I've coached about 25 or 30 people so far. I offer personalized resume review, a LinkedIn profile audit. I offer one-on-one personalized mentorship, and then also how to elevate your presence on LinkedIn, which is very similar to the things that we talked about today. And then something that's very popular, it's called Ask Me Anything, and someone can write a question for me, and then I will reply at least within 2 days. And so, yeah, if anyone wants my services, I would be more than happy to help you. I have been listed in the top 1% in terms of the ratings that I've received from the other people that I have helped. I think I have a perfect rating out of everyone who I've, worked with. And I really love doing this. I really love helping job seekers. And there's nothing more satisfying than when someone I coach sends me an email and says, "Oh my God, I just got a job offer." I got an email like that 2 days ago from someone I coached, and it's incredibly rewarding. So, yeah, if anyone is interested in my services, I'd be happy to help.
So find you on LinkedIn. Melissa Grabiner, you are a senior talent acquisition leader at One Digital, but more importantly, you are a master of LinkedIn and all things LinkedIn. Thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with us. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And I appreciate everyone listening. Thank you so much.